Hi everybody, this is Lisa and welcome to Verbling and to another class. This is going to be an English reading class this hour, and I like to do the reading classes because it gives you lots of opportunities to read out loud, to listen to me read out loud, and to also practice your speaking, because we usually discuss the articles afterwards, and so it's a good practice for people to have a good conversation about something. So it helps enlarge your vocabulary and your speed of speaking and discussing. So if you're interested in joining the class, you can use your reservation that you made. Hi there, Ricardo and Vincenzo. And otherwise, you can click on the Join Class button to come into the Google Hangouts window. So you're going to be coming in here, and that way you participate in the class, and you'll be able to read out loud and ask questions and talk and have a good time. So if you want to join us, just click on the Join Class button. And for everybody who's ready to get started, I posted the link over here in the Verbling chat box, and so that will take us to the Google document where I posted the article. Read. There's the article. There it is again. So if you want to go click on that, you'll be able to see it. Yeah. Welcome to Oops. Hi, Ricardo. How are you doing today?
Hello, teacher. I'm fine, and you? Hello, everybody.
I'm doing well. How's Brazil?
It's cold. I like.
It's cold?
Not too much.
Yeah. Okay. And Vincenzo, you're up late.
Yes.
What time is it?
Yes, it's very late because I can't sleep. I can't sleep tonight, so I thought to follow you in this lesson.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah.
No, I'm very interested in pronunciation, but
okay.
there is a something that is repeated. I know a voice that is coming on that I don't understand.
What is it?
There is a delay in your voice.
Oh, a delay? Okay.
Yeah, there is.
Huh.
I don't know how to succeed in order to get it done.
Yeah, I don't know. I think my connection is good. How is your internet connection right now?
Yes. Perhaps I must change browser. Change browser in order to change. Okay, I'll be with you in. I'll be with you in a moment. I'm going to change my browser.
Okay, we'll be here. Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so Vincenzo's gonna go out and try something so that his the sound is better for him. It sounds like there was a little bit of a delay, so sometimes that happens when your internet connection is a little bit slow. So we're going to wait here a minute, Ricardo, and see if we get some more people in the class. It did say there were 4 or 5 people who had reserved, and so if you did make a reservation using one of your tickets, then you can get that ticket and use it right now and click on the Join Class button. Otherwise, if you want to join the class, you do need to have a ticket, and there are a few ways to get tickets. Some of them you can get for free if you do a few things like invite friends on Facebook and things like that. But the best, most reliable way to get tickets is to become a premium member of Verbling, and this allows you to get access to all the classes, and you can make reservations and join the classes that you want. So Ricardo, did you go? Oh, looks like lots of people have already opened the document here, so maybe there are people who are just going to watch us and listen to us read and talk. And if you want to join in the class, now would be a good time because we're going to begin here in just a second. as soon as we get Vincenzo back into the Google Hangout, we can start reading, and we're going to be reading and discussing, and also I will be going over vocabulary and phrases and things like that. So, Ricardo, why don't you and I just have a little conversation here while we are waiting for Vincenzo to come back, so we can include him in the reading, and also we will wait to see if some other people show up. I was figuring out the time zones, and I'm surprised to see Vincenzo because it's pretty late in Italy, but he said he couldn't sleep because I was thinking this time is a good time for people in like Brazil and South America and stuff. But is it a good time for you, Ricardo? What time is it for you? 9?
9 p.m. here.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, Vincenzo, you're back. How is the sound for you now?
Yes. Now that's very good.
Oh, it's good?
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. I can follow you. I don't hear any noise.
Oh, great. Okay, good. I wanted to ask Ricardo one thing. Ricardo, did you start your new job yet?
Yes, it's the third week, teacher.
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
Oh, good. Happy. You like it?
Yes.
Great. That's exciting. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's get started, and maybe we will have some other students join us once we get started, since there are people looking at the article online. Maybe they'll want to come in and read along with us. Okay, earlier today I had another reading class, and I also chose an article from the same website. It's this guy named Daniel Coyle. He's an author, and he's written a book called The Talent Code, and that's his website, thetalentcode.com. And he writes about success and talent and how people can use different strategies to become successful at whatever it is that they want. So he studies artists, musicians, athletes, business people, and trying to figure out what it is that people do to achieve the type of goals that they want, success in their area. And I always like to read his stuff and then read it with you guys because I think it's pertinent, or it is related also to language learning. So trying to improve your English. I know that for some of us, you guys, your English might be your second or third language that you are learning, and you're here on Verbling to improve and to practice. So I always consider these articles interesting and of relevance because they might be able to give you guys some ideas. And I also am interested personally because I'm also learning languages and other things in life that we want to learn and become successful at. So that's kind of why I chose this article. He writes on his blog. So these are actually what we call blog posts nowadays. They used to be just articles if you found them in the newspaper or something, but now they are blog posts. All right, so let's get started. This one is called Forget 10,000 Hours, Instead Aim for 10 Minutes. So I'm wondering, Ricardo and Vincenzo, have you guys heard about that it's called here in the U.S., they call it the 10,000 hour rule, where you become an expert in something like maybe playing the guitar or singing or being a soccer player or something like that after 10,000 hours of practice. Have you guys heard about that?
10,000.
No.
No, I've never heard about it.
Okay, so then I'll just tell you a little bit about the history. There is a book, I think it was called The Tipping. I think there's an author named Malcolm Gladwell, and he's an author for like the New Yorker magazine and stuff, and he wrote several books, and one of the books he included this idea that people think that after you have put in 10,000 hours of something, like practicing a skill, then you'll become an expert. And so a lot of people in the United States, especially for the last few years, have been talking about this idea of getting in 10,000 hours of practice. And of course, that will be something that takes many years for some people, depending on how much time every day you can put into whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether it's playing tennis or golf or learning a language or becoming a mathematician, anything.
10,000.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what they have been talking about. So, but he's saying now, forget 10,000 hours. Instead, aim for 10 minutes. So maybe the 10,000 hours is not the most important thing. Instead, he's going to tell us about a new way of becoming successful or becoming what people consider an expert. Okay? So I'm going to read first, and then you guys are going to have a lot of practice reading today because you guys are the only two in the class so far. So let's get going. It's hard to believe, but it's been nearly 5 years since the 10,000 hour rule went mainstream. Last week, as if to officially mark the anniversary, more than 300 coaches, players, general managers, and talent development experts from around the world gathered at the Leaders in Performance Conference in New York. Among this crowd, you might expect to find people singing the praises of the 10,000 hour rule. Okay, Ricardo, why don't you read that paragraph, please?
Okay. It's hard to believe, but it's been nearly 5 years since the 10,000 hour rule went mainstream. Last week, as if it officially marked the anniversary for 300 coaches, players, general managers, and talent development experts from around the world, gathered at the Leader in Performance Conference in New York. Among this crowd, just a minute. Okay. Among this crowd, you might expect to find people singing the praises of the 10,000 hour rule.
Okay, good. So let's go through some of this vocabulary here. So it's hard to believe, but it's been nearly, so near almost 5 years since the 10,000 hour went mainstream. So mainstream is when something becomes known by a lot of people. So if something is mainstream, it means a lot of people in the country perhaps know about it. Sometimes a new idea is very small and not very many people know about it, but if a book is written about it or maybe the person gets on TV a lot, then more and more people learn about it, and so it becomes what we call mainstream. So most people understand what it means, okay? So that's why in the United States, a lot of people know about the 10,000 hour rule, especially if there are people like teachers or coaches or people like that who work with people who are trying to learn skills. Okay, so last week to officially mark, when you mark something, you're making a point of it, so there was an anniversary. They had more than 300 coaches. You guys know what coaches are, and players, general managers, and talent development experts. So to development, these are the people who work with athletes and musicians and other people who are helping them figure out the best way to get better. So you can imagine people who work with professional or Olympic athletes and also movie stars, anybody who's trying to figure out how to make people get better in whatever they're doing. So they gathered, that means they came together for a conference, and he's saying that among this crowd, you might think that people would be singing the praises of the 10,000 rules. If you sing the praise of somebody or something, it means you talk about how great it is. But he says you'd be wrong. So apparently they were not talking about the 10,000 hour rule. A significant number disliked it because they saw the rule creating a mindless culture of hour counting. They saw sports federations building programs around the metric, using it as the sole measure of progress. Okay, Vincenzo?
Well, you'd be wrong. A significant number disliked it disliked it because they saw the rule creating a mindless culture of hour counting. They saw sports federation building programs around the metric, using it as the sole measure of progress.
Right. So, did people like it?
No.
They didn't like it. So a significant number.
Because they saw the.
Yeah.
What's the reason? Because they saw the real creating in mind. I don't understand what's the reason, but why they don't dislike it. Okay.
Right. So they disliked it. That means they didn't like it because they saw the rule. So they're talking about this 10,000 hours. They think that listening to this rule or believing it was creating a mindless culture. So when he describes a mindless culture of hour counting, mindless means you're not thinking about it. You're just doing it because somebody said to. And now you're just going to put in the hours. You're just counting the hours. Yeah. So it created a bunch of people who thought.
I don't understand it.
Okay, let me explain it. So creating a mindless culture of hour counting. So if somebody tells you, Vincenzo, to be perfect in English, you have to practice for 10,000 hours. Okay? And so you say, oh, okay, and then you just start counting your hours, and every day you say, okay, 2 hours plus 3 hours today and 1 more hour, and you're just counting the hours, but maybe you're not really getting better because you're not really paying attention to what you're learning. So you're thinking that the hours is what's important. Yeah.
No,
that's what they're talking about.
I'm paying attention to the hour.
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to the hours, not to the study. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It's like somebody who is playing the violin, for example, and they say, "Oh yeah, I practiced for an hour today," but they didn't really pay attention. They didn't really do a very good job.
Okay. I understand.
Okay,
they
cool.
pay attention the hour, but not the study. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. So they're seeing sports federations. So those are associations or organizations. And what they had been seeing were that these sports organizations or federations were making up programs around the 10,000 hours, around that kind of a measurement, and that was their sole or their only. That is progress. So rather than really understanding, if that soccer player was getting better at the skills, they just were saying, "Oh, you practiced 100 hours this month. That's good." But yeah, so they were thinking more about the hours than the actual skills. What, Vincenzo?
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah. You are good. Yes, you are good because you are made a lot of hours, but but it's not true. Okay. It's not okay.
Right. For example, what happens if you practice 5 hours the same thing, but it's wrong? Like just because you practice 5 hours, but doesn't mean you're better if you were practicing like the piece incorrectly or not very well. So that's what they're saying. Yeah. Okay, so it's absolutely nuts. The head of one of
nuts.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. So that means crazy. It's absolutely
crazy.
Yeah, the head of one nation's soccer federation told me, coaches are tracking practice hours and the athletes are clocking in and out with time cards like they're working on an assembly line. There's no ownership, no creativity. Okay, Ricardo?
Okay, teacher. It's absolutely nuts, crazy. The head of one nation soccer federation told me, coaches are tracking practice hours and the athletes are clocking in and out with time cards like they're working on an assembly line. And there's no ownership, no creativity.
Mm-hmm. So it's absolutely nuts. That just means it's crazy. And the person who said that was the head. So that's when we say the head of something, it means it's like the director or the main person. Yeah. And so that was one person or one nation federation. All right. Coaches are tracking practice hours, and athletes are clocking in and out with time cards. When you clock in, it's like you came to work at 8 and then you left work at 5. You clocked in and then you clocked out. And lots of businesses use time cards to do that, to see what time you came in and what time you left. And that's kind of like treating these professional soccer players, for example, like they're working on an assembly line. Do you guys know what an assembly line is?
Yes, I know.
No,
I understand.
Yeah.
no.
Okay, an assembly line is a line of workers who are putting something together, like a car, for example. And they're all lined up in the factory, and they just do one thing at a time. Like they put the tires on, and then these people put the other thing on. And so that's an assembly line, and it's not very creative. Yeah, so this is why he's complaining. There's no ownership and no creativity for those people. So if you're treating like professional soccer players or people who want to be professionals at whatever, and like they're just simple workers on an assembly line, it's not really helping them. That's what they found out. So it says
they were treated like excuse me.
Yeah.
They were treated like employees because they have a card in order to when they enter, when they get out, when they get in,
right.
They get out.
Yeah, they clock in and they clock out, and that's usually. So he's using this because the person who's saying this guy, the head of the soccer federation, is using this imagery or this idea because usually when you have factory workers, that's not necessarily very skilled. And here you're trying to create people with really good skills in like sports or music or whatever, and you want them to be creative. You want them to feel like they're really, and so not like assembly line workers. Assembly line workers usually, they just do the same thing over and over again. They don't necessarily have a lot of skill.
Like sheep.
Yeah, and these days, a lot of, for example, a lot of the factories in China, you can have an image of those because those are like assembly lines. It started, I think, in the United States with Henry Ford in the car and the automobile industry, and then now lots of industries create products like that on an assembly line where your job is just to do one thing. Yeah.
It's a chain of worker.
Exactly. And all you do is you put in your time. You put in your time. You that's how you work. You just do the same thing, but you put in your time. So becoming an expert, that's not what you need to do. There's other things. So he says here next, the science behind the 10,000-hour rule has been subject to debate, and rightly so, because talent is more complex than any one measure. For example, how do you calibrate the impact of Warren Buffett's childhood paper route on his temperament and business skills? How do you count the hours the young Keith Richards spent listening to blues records and falling in love with them? Okay, Ricardo?
Okay, the science behind the 10,000-hour rule has been subject to debate, and rightly so because, just a moment,
Sure.
And rightly so because talent is more complex than any one measure. For example, how do you calibrate the impact of the Warren Buffett childhood paper route on his temperament and business skills? How do you count the hours the young Kate Richards spent listening to blues records and fall in love with them?
Yeah. Okay, so the science behind, so that I don't even know if there was really behind it or not, but he's saying the studies maybe that were the reason why people started thinking about the 10,000 hours, they've been subject to debate. So that means people have to discuss them. And yeah, when you debate something, it's like you argue against it or for it. Is it right? Is it wrong?
Yes.
Yeah. And then he says, rightly so. So this, when you say, and rightly so, that means he agrees with that. He agrees that they should be debating it, because maybe it's not the right, it's not the only thing to consider. He says here, because talent is more complex. There's lots of things that you have to take into consideration, not just one thing, not any one measure, right? And then he gives these examples. For example, how do you calibrate? When you calibrate, that means how do you measure the impact, and that's another, the importance. Yeah, and you guys know who this guy is? This is an American businessman. He's actually one of the wealthiest people in the United States. He's a billionaire guy. And so he's known as a very successful businessman, very successful in the area of business. He owns lots of companies and in the stock market and all of that kind of thing. And so he's saying, as an example, how can you measure, how can you calibrate the impact that having a childhood paper route? Yeah, how can you consider that? Like, for example, he delivered papers when he was a kid, right? In the United States, we used to have paper boys that would ride their bikes around the neighborhood and throw the paper to the front porch of the customers, his neighbors. And so he had one of those. And how do we know what the impact of that was on his temperament? That means, like, how he is he calm? Does he get upset? He has a certain type of temperament or personality, and his business skills. So that's for an example. Or Keith Richards, the Rolling Stones. That's a band, a rock and roll band that was pretty popular. And Keith Richards was the guitar player for the Rolling Stones. So how do you count or measure, calibrate, or consider, like you said, Vincenzo, the impact or the importance that spending many, many hours listening to blues records had on him becoming such a popular, successful guitar player? Right. So we don't know. It's not just about hours practicing. There are many other reasons why people become so talented or so successful. Yeah.
Conditions.
Yeah.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yeah.
What about paper route? What is it, paper route?
The paper route. Okay. Remember, I said in the United States, not so much anymore, but a long time, like 20 years ago or something, the way that the newspaper got delivered was that young kids, usually boys, would have what they call a paper route. So that was in your neighborhood. Maybe you had 100 customers, and so you had to get every morning, you would get the papers delivered to your house, and then you would roll them up. Yeah, and then you would get on your bike, and you would take the papers, and as you rode through your neighborhood, you would throw the paper onto the porch of the front of the house, and that is your route. So that is the path that you took. Okay, does that make sense?
Okay. Thank you.
And that's what you say. He had a paper route. That means he delivered newspapers on his bike. That's what that is. Okay? So the real issue here, however, is that the 10,000 hour rule is not really about quantity. It's about the power of sharp, focused, high-quality practice. It's about the massive learning differences created by intense efforts within highly engaging practice environments. We see this in the habits of high-performing groups, many of whom build their skills through a combination of short, sharp sessions and lots of restorative rest. Okay, Vincenzo, why don't you read that?
Okay. The real issue here, however, is that the 10,000 hour rule is not really about quantity. It's about the power of sharp, focused, high-quality practice. It's about the massive learning differences created by intense efforts within highly engaging practice environments. We see this in the habits of high-performing groups, many of whom build their skills through a combination of short, sharp sessions and lots of restorative rest.
Yes. Okay, so here's the real issue. So the real thing says is not about quantity. So it's not
Yes,
so many
quality.
hours. Yeah, so we talk about quantity versus quality a lot of times. So what the researchers are finding is that it's more about the power of sharp,
Sure.
precise, and also focused. When you're very focused, 10 things
Yes.
at once, but you're doing one thing at a time, and high quality practice. It's about massive learning differences. So the word massive here, like huge, and also
Yeah. Heavy. Yeah. Huge, heavy. Yeah.
massive can be used to describe something like the building was massive, it was huge, or it was heavy, or something. But it can also mean important, and I think here it's more like
Yes.
a big difference here. And these differences are created by intense efforts. So not just I'm going to play the violin for 5 minutes, but I'm not going to pay attention. No, it's like really intense. You're going to practice something very focused and highly engaging. So engaging, like you're really interested. You really want to do it. You're not bored. You're not sitting there trying to do other things. You're actually being very engaged. So what he's saying is,
Involved.
yes,
Involved.
yes, involved. You say involved when. And what he says, we see this in the habits. So the habits are the things that people do regularly, often, in the high-performing group. So people who are actually very successful and who have high-level skills. That they do this, they have a combination. So a couple of things together. Short, sharp sessions. A session is a time period with lots of restorative rest. So when you rest, you are restoring yourself. You're taking a break. Okay, so that is really important for these people who are working so focused on their skill. So you can imagine people you've probably seen on TV how they interview Olympic athletes and stuff and how they practice, and this is what they do. They're very intense practices. Okay, does that all make sense there? Okay. For
Yes, yes.
Okay, for example, at La Masia, the training academy that has produced the majority of Barcelona's world-beating soccer team, the schedule calls for organized training a mere 70 minutes per day, a figure that most U.S. travel soccer coaches would scoff at as being insufficient. But here's the thing. It's a world-class 70 minutes, a razor-sharp, full-tilt, meticulously planned session with far more content and engagement than any mundane, exhausting 3-hour practice. Okay, Ricardo.
Wow.
I know.
Let's go. Let's go.
Talent.
Talent, yeah.
I try. Just 10,000 an hour.
Yeah.
Let's go. For example, at La Masia, the training academy that has produced the majority of Barcelona's world-beating soccer team, the schedule calls for organized training, mere 70 minutes per day. Uh, Figure that most U.S. travel soccer coaches would scotch at
Scarf.
as being insufficient. But there is the thing, it's a world-class 70 minutes. A razor-sharp, full-footed, meticulously planned session with far more content and engagement than any mundane, exhausting 3 hours practice.
Right. All right.
Nice.
Yes. Good. All right. So La Masia, so that's the training academy or the training school. Academy is another word for like a school or a training center. That has produced the majority. See that the Barcelona's world-beating soccer team. So you guys probably know that Barcelona is a very successful soccer team, and yet at this training center they only have 70 minutes per day. So that's only a little bit more than an hour of organized training. When you say a mere, that means like only. only
Yes.
70 minutes, a
Yes.
mere. A figure,
Mm.
so that 70 minutes figure that most of these coaches in the US would scoff at. So you say with the F sound there, at, and that means that they
Scarf.
would, yeah, scoff. To scoff at something says, ugh, that's not a good idea. So they would say, oh, that's not right. That's not a good idea because they would think, they would say it's insufficient. It's not enough. So insufficient,
Excuse
and
me,
that's,
teacher.
yes.
Can you use another verb for scoff at?
They would, you could say they would disagree. They would
Disagree. Okay.
disagree, or
Thank you.
they might frown.
From. I've never heard it.
Yeah,
From.
to frown is make
From.
a sad face, you know, when you make us and your lips go down and you're frowning, you're sad. They would just say no way. That doesn't work. So
Okay.
if you scoff
Okay.
at
Thank you.
something, you basically are saying you disagree, you don't agree
Disagree.
with it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. But here's the thing. It's a world class. So whenever you describe something as world class, it's like really great. It's like the best. So these 70 minutes are going to be really wonderful 70 minutes of practice because it's going to be razor sharp. So like you can imagine a razor that you like shave your face with is very sharp. And it's going to be full tilt. So it's all the way practicing as hard as they can probably. And it's
Excuse me,
going,
teacher.
yes.
But a razor is always sharp, or not?
Well,
Well, I don't.
a razor can be dull too. If the razor is not sharp,
Is it? Razor is not sharp. No.
if you have a razor that's not sharp, it would be described as dull. So he's saying
Okay.
razor sharp. Yeah. So
Affilato,
really
affilato.
yes,
Is
yes.
very cutting. No.
It's going to
Very.
be
Okay.
very precise.
Precise. Not so
Yeah.
very
So
precise. But
yeah,
okay.
razor sharp.
That's
It's
to
going to
say.
be precise. Yeah. It's going
Okay.
the practice.
Perfect.
Yeah, the skills that they're going to have you do at this soccer practice are going to be they're not going to be sloppy. So like the opposite would be sloppy or boring or not very, very intense, not very precise. Yeah. Because they are meticulously planned. Meticulously means like somebody went and the coaches said, we were going to do this for 5 minutes, then we're going to do this for 10 minutes, and all the people have to do it this way. So when you meticulously do something, you know the details and you know exactly what you're going to do. You're not just leaving it up to chance. You're planning it in a way that you're going to use your time very well. So that's what they are doing. Yes.
Okay. Full tilt is teacher. Full tilt.
Yeah.
Full tilt.
Full tilt means like all give it your all. The players are going to have to really show up and be very intense. So it's going to be like very
full tilt. Full operative. No, yeah. No.
Full tilt.
Full operative.
Yeah.
Full acting. Okay.
Yeah, did you look it up?
Okay.
Yeah. So full tilt is that's what yeah, it just means like all the way. It's like they're not gonna do it halfway. Like there's another word that is a very informal phrase. If you do something half-ass, that means like you don't really do it very well. You do it a little bit. But if you do it to full tilt, it means you did it all the way. You did your best the whole time.
All the way, continue, yes.
Yeah, and so that's what
continuously.
Yeah,
continue.
They want that for the players to be able to use those 70 minutes all the way, the whole time.
To run all the time.
Yeah, okay. And maybe not just run, but really using their time. They're not okay. So the opposite would be a practice right here. This is what he said is the opposite. So something that would be a practice that's mundane or boring, basically, and exhausting. So maybe you're running around for 3 hours, but you're also maybe talking and goofing off and fooling around and not listening to your coach, and maybe you're walking around and you're not doing something.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that's the difference. The 70-minute session is going to have lots of content, so lots of skill building and lots of engagement. So that means
Participation.
yeah,
Participation.
participation, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're going to be doing something the whole time, not just standing there waiting and watching. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So good. We got through that one. Any questions, Ricardo, that you have?
No, no question. I'm just thinking it's not the way to create genius, but I like this kind of methodology.
Okay.
Uh, like book is 24 hours books
Uh-huh.
when read it 1 hour a day. I like
Yeah.
it's just methodology.
Yes, exactly. Okay, the other benefit of this approach is that it frees the learners to spend time on their own. Real learning doesn't happen just through organized drills. Most of it happens in the off hours when you're fooling around, inventing games, competing, experimenting, mimicking, grappling with problems, and inventing solutions. When you're wholly engaged in the art of simple, intense play. Okay, Vincenzo.
All right. The other benefit of this approach is that it frees the learners to spend time on their own. Real learning doesn't happen just through organized drills. Most of it happens in the off hours when you are fooling around, inventing games, competing, experimenting, mimicking, grappling with problems, and inventing solutions. When you are wholly engaged in the art of simple, intense play.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? What does it mean? This perhaps they want the people to be with themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Themselves.
So what he's saying is that you can just imagine, like professional soccer players or musicians. One part of their practice does involve this organized drills. So if you're a player, it is important to go to practice and have some kind of organized learning or skill building or something like that. But learning, or he's saying actually real learning, so really makes a difference, is actually done or actually happens on off hours. So what we call off hours are the times that you're not at.
Yes.
Yeah, the off hours.
Because he want to say that you must leave the person alone in order to digest what they have learned.
Exactly. It's kind of like if you think of it in language learning, if you were in class all day learning and I was drilling you on all the verbs and all the tenses,
Yes.
and then but you never actually spoke English. You just did all these drills.
You became mad, no?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the same thing like with something like football or soccer.
Yes.
If all you did was drills, you just practiced kicking the ball, and trying to make goals, but you actually never played. You never competed, you never did anything else, you're not going to be very good, right? So you learn some skills, and then you get to use them, and you use them by fooling around.
Yes, in other terms, a people is not a machine. No?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So do you guys know fooling around, what it means to fool around?
You're fooling around.
So when you're fooling around, you're having fun. So you're just like, for example, you keep using the soccer player. For example, if you're a soccer player, fooling around means just kicking the ball around with your friends. You're just having some fun. Maybe you're juggling the ball, you're bouncing it off your knees and your feet and that kind of thing. But you're not necessarily working at a specific skill. You're just fooling around with the ball. If you're a musician, for example, maybe practicing involves, playing your scales, practicing over and over. But if you're fooling around, you're making up music, you're inventing new things, you're doing something fun.
Yes, another thing is different from from that they want to learn, in order to distract you, no? Order to yes.
Or maybe
yes.
using your skills, but in a different way, like more like
in a different
game
way. Yes,
yes.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're
Something
actually
different.
competing. You're actually playing the game with somebody, playing to practice. Or you're experimenting with new ideas, like musicians are always experimenting with new chords and new melodies and things.
It's a way to relax. No,
exactly.
It's a way to relax. Yeah, okay.
Do you know what mimicking is, when you mimic somebody?
Yeah, mimicry, yes. When you imitate someone or something.
Imitate them? Yeah.
In speaking, on moving.
So,
yeah.
Exactly. So if you're learning English, for example, it could be fun to like watch a movie or to listen to somebody that you like and then try to mimic them. There is a guy that I saw I saw a guy on YouTube, and he was from Canada. He was from China, and he came to Canada to learn English, and the way he learned English, he sounded almost like a cowboy. He talked like an American cowboy because he mimicked the voices of the cowboys in the movies. So
I saw that in NBC. I saw that in NBC in the transmission. Perhaps there is a conductor that imitate a political, something like that. Yes, NBC. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of fun. It's not exactly an organized drill, but it's for fun. You can pretend you're somebody else, you know. And when you grapple with problems, that means you try to solve them, dealing with problems, and you're inventing solutions to come up with how to solve those problems. But you're wholly engaged. That means entirely engaged in the art of simple and intense play. So it's important to work hard and study something or practice in an organized way, but he's saying it's even more important to do some intense play, and that's what this La Masia lets their people do. They have organized drills every day, but the rest of the time they're doing other things, and the result is that they're producing some really great soccer players. So perhaps a solution is to ignore the 10,000 hour rule and instead embrace the 10-minute rule, which has 3 elements. Yeah, let's see. One is focus, so you target skill, a single chunk you want to work on, super high intensity, rest. Only do it when you're fresh. If you're exhausted, quit. Okay, why don't you read that part, Ricardo, please?
Yes. Okay, let's go, Ricardo. Okay.
Here, okay. From 10,000 to 10.
So perhaps a solution.
So perhaps a solution is to ignore the 10,000 hour rule and instead embrace the 10 minutes rule, which has 3 elements. Focus. Pick out the target skills. Single chunk you want to work on. 2. Super high intensity. 3. Rest, only do it when you're fresh. If you're exhausted,
quit.
Exhausted.
Yeah, if you're exhausted, quit. Yeah, so he's suggesting, the author who wrote this is suggesting ignore, so that do not pay attention to the hours. So don't be like a factory worker and the assembly, just putting in your hours, but instead embrace. So when you embrace something, it means you do it wholeheartedly. You want to, and he's calling it the 10-minute rule. So he's making that up. It's not like a rule that anybody studied, but he's saying that the 10-minute rule would have 3 parts to it, or 3 elements. And the first one is that you focus. So you're going to pick one thing that you're going to work on. So for example, for a musician, it might be a piece of music that one part of the song they really want to play well. For an athlete, it might be like shooting baskets for a basketball player from a certain part on the court, or something like that. So it's a single chunk. So just you're going to work on one thing, a single thing that you want to work on, that you want to perfect, and then you're going to do it very intensely with high intensity. That means you're going to do it over and over. You're going to be very focused, thinking about it. And then you're only going to do it if you're fresh. Fresh means you feel good, you're alive, you want to do it. If you're exhausted or you get exhausted, quit, stop. So when you quit doing it, you're just going to stop it so that you're not wearing yourself out. Okay.
So so your attention doesn't work when you are exhausted.
You'll get sloppy, and then you won't be practicing it the way you want to practice it. You'll start messing up and stuff. Yeah. So in other words, don't approach practice like a factory worker logging hours. Instead, think like an opportunist. Be an entrepreneur. Okay, Vincenzo?
Yes.
You can read that last part.
Excuse me. No, I was thinking.
Okay, read that last little paragraph for us.
Okay. In other words, don't approach practice like a factory worker logging hours. Instead, think like an opportunist. Be an entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur.
What is it?
An entrepreneur? Okay, I'll tell you. So,
entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's a French word, entrepreneur. It means a business person who creates things instead of a factory. So a factory worker is just a person who comes in and they do one thing all day pretty much, and they just put in their time. They log their hours. That means they put in their hours. So to log hours means to put in hours or to work their hours. You don't want to do that if you want to be successful at something. Instead, you want to think like an opportunist. An opportunist is a person who takes opportunities to learn new things and to try new things and to not just put in the time but be creative, and you want to be like an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur, in the United States, we use that word, entrepreneur, to mean like business people who have creative ideas, and they're not just workers who will put in the time and follow other people's orders. They're people who take advantage of ideas and opportunities and time and things like that. So he's saying that maybe that is what's more important than just the 10,000 hours. It's more important how you practice something, not just the amount of time. So it's the quality, what we talked about before. Yes.
So an entrepreneur is one people that works for itself.
Is a person. Well, usually an entrepreneur.
A creative person. People in the work.
So an entrepreneur would be. Do you know like Steve Jobs?
Yes. It's a creative people. Creative people.
Yeah, and they usually specifically create. So it's not necessarily like an artist. For example, an artist isn't an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody who has an idea for how to make
money.
So that's okay. But he's saying to be an entrepreneur. So even if you're not creating a business, you're trying to be successful, you're trying to do your own thing. So usually entrepreneurs do not organize plans and
teacher is an entrepreneur.
So it's different from an artist. It's different from an artist, no?
Yes.
It's not an artist. It is a businessman, a creative businessman.
Typically, yeah. But so to be an entrepreneur, though, means like if somebody, okay, so it's usually the entrepreneur. If you're just, for example, then you have a job and you go to your job and that's what you do, and you don't necessarily create new ideas or new ideas for business. But an entrepreneur is a person who takes more risk.
Okay,
because
that's
sometimes they
okay.
spend their own money and they create a new business and
Yes, yes, yes.
that kind of thing.
What they say added value.
Yes,
Add,
exactly.
added value. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times entrepreneurs are people who
Create. Yes.
it's hard for
Mm,
them to be workers because they don't want to listen to bosses. They want to be their own boss. You understand that?
they want
They want to be their own
to follow.
boss.
Yeah.
Do you
They
understand
want
that?
to follow the boss says.
They
Only
don't
what the
want to
boss
follow.
says.
Yeah, an entrepreneur
They don't want. Yeah.
doesn't.
And doesn't follow what the boss says, but create something
Yeah,
that is over noise, that
yeah,
is beyond the what the boss says.
yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, an entrepreneur is somebody who
Uh,
sorry, I got kicked out.
creative,
Okay.
creative. You can say creative
Almost
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
in work, creative in work, in
yeah.
in, in his work. Yes.
Hmm.
Dicevo, is empreendedor.
Eh?
Emprendedor.
Emprendedor.
Empreendedor.
Yeah, it could
Yeah,
be.
yeah. So, the United States is pretty popular. One of the things that the United States is known for as a country is that we have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of people who they don't just want to go to school and do everything the right way. They have their own ideas and they want to take risks and they want to
Yes,
try
yes,
new
yes, yes.
things. So, and those are
Like a,
people like Bill
like,
Gates and Steve
yes,
Jobs, and they created
a
companies and yeah,
pioneer,
yeah,
like pioneer,
pioneers.
yeah,
But
pioneer.
it's not necessarily easy. It's just
Yeah,
that that person doesn't want to go to work for somebody else. Like many people are happy to go to work, have a job, get paid a salary, but an
yes, yes,
entrepreneur is somebody who takes more
yes,
risks.
yes.
Yeah, because it's not always a
They,
guarantee of
they
money.
fo- they follow the routine without any uh, purpose or
Yeah,
to find something different in order
yeah,
to do something here. But a entrepreneur is a person that perhaps has a big personality also, no? A
or a
big
big
personality.
idea. For
Big
example,
idea, big personality also.
yeah.
Yeah.
For example, you could call the people who created Verbling, the young, I think it's mostly guys,
Yes,
they had an idea. They're an entrepreneur. So they had an idea to create the website to help people learn languages
yes,
and connect with each other. So that's an idea that you have in your head. And as an entrepreneur, you go out and you try to make it work. You see if you can make it work. Can this work? Do people want to do this? Can I create a
yes,
business? Can the business be
yes, yes,
successful?
yes,
Yeah. And
yes.
sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But usually entrepreneurs keep trying.
Yeah,
They keep
like
trying.
Facebook,
Yeah,
Twitter, something like that. The
exactly.
person who
Yeah.
creates, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
I think in Brazil right now, Ricardo, I've heard that there's lots of new ideas happening in Brazil. Lots of young people doing startup businesses. Lots of new we call it entrepreneurial type activities. Is that true? Is that something that you see in Brazil right now?
Yeah, Brazil is very big. I think
Yeah.
have a lot of entrepreneurs
Yeah.
around my country, I believe. It is
Yeah.
not my country.
Yeah. Well,
So,
especially with the internet,
so
a lot of people are trying to make internet businesses. So that's something new, in the last 15 years or so. And as more people understand how to build websites, they can start a
Yeah.
business. They don't need to buy a building or to have a rent a shop or something. You can start a business online. So lots of entrepreneurs are trying that.
this
The
may,
class was very fast.
eh?
Don't disappear.
Say it again.
The class was very fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it went by pretty fast, huh? Yeah.
Very. What did you say? Did he say?
He said that this class went by very fast because
Okay.
we were talking and reading, and it's just us three, so there's not too many people. You didn't have to wait around and listen to other people. You got to read.
This fact about entrepreneurial make us reflect about ourselves, about this quality. You know, I
Yes.
don't know. I don't know about you, but with me, it makes me reflect
Yeah.
about myself about this quality that I don't have. You know?
Oh. Well, and it's
And
everybody.
I would have, but I don't. Perhaps I don't know about you or about the other person that are in this class
Ricardo, yeah.
because it's very interesting, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Teacher,
yes, Ricardo.
don't disappear, please.
Don't
What?
disappear. Okay.
Not disappear?
Back
No,
into the class. Stay
no,
Okay.
no.
on.
How do you say? I feel like a pygmeo. A pygmeo? No, pygmeo. How do you say nano?
A
A,
nano, like an elf?
a little man, nano. No. What do you say in English? How do you say in English?
We
Nano.
say elf.
Elf. Yes, elf.
Yeah, like a little elf.
In
Yeah.
this case, I feel like an elf. Okay.
Like a beginner, maybe.
Yes, a beginner. Yes, a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
Okay.
To learn more about that. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're
Okay.
welcome, Ricardo. Thank you guys for coming to class and for
Thank,
reading and talking, and it was fun.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. Bye. It was very interesting.
Yeah.